Thanks, Bob. Welcome, everyone, to the start of this healthcare and wellness track. Great to see you all here. So I'm really excited about this talk, not just because I like the sound of my own voice. The reason is it's about how you're actually putting VR into practice, right? So, when you have a talk with someone talking about, their product or what they might do or what it could do, that's all well and good. This is what actually is being done, and that's why I think it's really exciting, and particularly in this area. Pediatric cancer patient sort of therapy. I think it's a great use case, right? The more use cases we have in this area, the more you build the case and the more people look at it. And I think the work that Dr. Asher Marks is doing is brilliant and really sort of pushing forward in that area. So you'll be hearing much more from him. I'm just the warm-up act. We did come up with a different term for this last night, but I subsequently found out it's really inappropriate to use that in America. So I won't be calling myself that. I'm just the warm-up act. Nothing else. I'm not going to say it. I'm just not going to say it. Okay, so why am I here? So I'm Chief Marketing Officer for a company called the Glimpse Group. We are a US company, NASDAQ listed, pretty much the biggest independent immersive technology software and services company that is in the market at the moment. And we work with a lot of very interesting brands, one of them, of course, being Yale University School of Medicine. And we have an ecosystem of subsidiaries, 13 subsidiaries offering different solutions and services across different technology in different sectors. One of those subsidiaries is Foretell Reality, who worked with Dr. Asher Marks and his team to bring this project to life. And that's what I'm just going to set up with you first so that you can get a sense of how it comes together. So Foretell Reality is a collaborative VR platform, and it brings a number of key attributes and key benefits that are part of the reason why Yale Medical School chose it as their preferred solution for this project. One of them, very obvious, is immersive, right? But I think a key part of this is when you put these pediatric patients into it, they're fully immersed. They're not distracted, and you get all those amazing things that you get from within a VR environment. So that's kind of a given. I think anonymity is an interesting one as well, the ability for them not to have to necessarily reveal exactly who they are. And of course, they can create an avatar in whatever kind of shape or form they want. And also, they don't even necessarily have to give themselves, sort of names. So that anonymity, especially I think with this sort of age group, is quite an interesting feature to be able to have. Accessible, I think that was a really key factor, and that will be, so you'll hear more about that later on, but the ability for people to join these sessions remotely, that's a huge plus, right? Not having to bring them back into the hospital and whatever issues that might bring up. So that's a really important piece as well. Playful. That's an interesting angle here. Within this environment, you can throw balls around, you can go draw on the wall. Well, not that you should really do that in a therapy session, but hey, why not? It's virtual, so you can do what you want. So that playfulness is also important, right? It shouldn't, for this age group, once again, it's not all about, super seriousness. There's an ability to be a little bit playful. Obviously, it's a really non-judgmental environment. People feel a bit freer. They're able to express themselves. And it's super secure. So all these elements played into, part of the reasons why this was chosen as the right sort of platform. So I would say, to give you context, obviously if we're talking about this, you actually need to see what it is. This is a super quick video that I'm going to run you through. So basically, secure login, choose your avatar, which is Ready Player Me avatars. Then you have hosted, and you can have presentations. You can chuck a ball around, draw on the wall, whatever you want to do. One-to-one conversations. Interesting environments, as you'd expect, and also the ability to record as well. So you can record the sessions, then potentially watch yourselves back and see how you've reacted. So that's the platform itself. Now, to hear about how it's actually been implemented and all the things that have come out of that, which I think is the most interesting part, let's face it, I'll hand it over to Dr. Asher Marks.
Great. Thank you, James. So I'm thrilled to be here today. I love talking about this topic. This has been a real high point in my career. To give you a sense of kind of where I come from, I'm the medical director of pediatric neuro-oncology at Yale University. I'm also the director of the adolescent and young adult oncology clinic. And we were in a situation actually pre-COVID where we were starting this new program for adolescents and young adults, ages 15 to 39 is the official definition of this group. And we were tasked with improving outcomes. And it's really hard to cure cancer. I think that goes without saying. But we knew that there were some things that we could easily do, and improving psychosocial care of these patients was that. And so I thought it was easy. We get some support groups together. There's great evidence out there that support groups actually improve psychological welfare in these patients and ultimately can potentially improve overall outcomes. So I thought it'd be easy to do. What we found, however, is that patients did not want to come to the groups. They expressed desire. They expressed a desire to meet other adolescents and young adults with cancer. But when you ask them to come back to the hospital after hours, back to a place that they associate with chemotherapy and bad news and just overall terribleness, they're not going to do it. So we had a situation where our attendance rates on these groups were zero. And as a researcher, that's a great place to start because it's really easy to improve zero, okay? So we started thinking about the problem, right? They weren't coming. We knew we wanted them to come. And this is I use this picture to illustrate what they look like. It was just me sitting with a kid, no one was showing up. So we looked at possible solutions, right? There were get-togethers. Should we, find after work, after school activities for patients to come and hang out? They didn't want to do that. They had their own lives to live. Online forums presents a tremendous risk. As physicians and especially large healthcare organizations like Yale, we're very risk adverse. These tend to be unmoderated, don't know what's going to happen in them. Plenty of spread of misinformation, so that wasn't super exciting for us. Same goes for social media. Teleconference, just getting on the phone call. I think our patients felt like that's their grandparents' technology. So like, all right, cool. How about Zoom? Well, no, that's their parents' technology. And how many of you, have been on a Zoom call and been surfing the web at the same time, right? Like, we all do it, okay? So we came across VR. This was several years ago. This was around the time that the Quest was just getting up and going. It was clear that we're going to have a tether-free device that was reasonably affordable. So it was really exciting. And things in academia move really, really slowly. And you've got to show your colleagues really good evidence before doing it. So, I pushed this topic of immersion. We have some great functional MRI studies. Not great, I'll take it back. We've got some functional MRI studies that I hope get better over time. We've got this lack of distraction, a captive audience. We've got body language, right? Especially now that we're getting into 6-off headsets. You can actually see that leaning in, leaning out for the conversation. That's really important. A shared space and experience. There's great evidence to show that a shared experience, as simple as tossing a ball back and forth, really makes things more significant as opposed to sitting at home alone on a screen on Zoom. Opportunities for self-expression through avatars. This has been fascinating to watch evolve over the past few years. The initial avatars were quite basic, and now we're at Ready Player Me levels, which I love, and have tremendous broad appeal and abilities to really customize those as patients want. And let's be honest, it's an attractive technology for the adolescent young adult population. This is something that is great for getting this study going. It's something that I think we really need to look at when we're talking about evidence-based interventions moving forward, because eventually this technology is going to be everyday data technology. So is the excitement going to continue when it's something that adolescents and young adults just see as part of their lives? Software, James did a great job going through why we chose Foretell. There are plenty of options out there, but we really needed security. We needed a peer-to-peer, end-to-end solution, and this did it for us. We needed great spatial audio. Our patients are in a circle, right? They're in a room, they're in a circle with a facilitator with their headsets on, and to know who's talking, you've got to know kind of where in the circle they are. So we really need good spatial audio. Hardware agnostic was one of our priorities, and customizable. We needed a company that was going to work with us to customize the experience for what we felt our patients needed and what our patients said that they needed. And frankly, I think we bummed Foretell out a little bit in the beginning because we kept scaling it back. To do good science, you really need things as basic as possible. I just wanted a basic room for these patients to be in. So we launched this as a phase 1, phase 2 pilot trial. So as a pediatric oncologist, we're constantly looking at clinical trials. I run clinical trials myself. I run a very large phase 1 trial with a new drug that we're using in patients and adolescents and adults with brain tumors. So this is kind of my language, and this is the language of academia and medicine. And if you want buy-in, you got to talk their language. And that's been a real eye-opener, trying to bridge technology with academia. I think I'm the only one here today with a tie, and I feel kind of goofy, but it's totally different, customs, languages, interaction. So it's been a fantastic and really interesting experience. So we've got one moderator in this room of 4 patients. This moderator is our amazing Amanda Garbatini, who is our adolescent young adult social worker, an invisible observer. So that was either myself or a research assistant. So Foretell gave me the ability to be in the room without being seen. The patients knew I was there. They were told about me, but I was able to just kind of watch from afar. We started, I put on the headset. I was excited to get in there, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't take notes. So they got me an app I can run on my laptop, so I can watch the interaction while taking notes. The avatars, and of course the head and hand tracking we already mentioned many times. So assessment tools. So my real goal with this trial was just to show that patients would show up, just to show that we could get them online, they could understand how to use the headsets. It was easy, but we wanted to be a little bit more ambitious, and we wanted to look at outcomes. Can we show improved depression? Can we show improved anxiety? And that's what we did with these PROMIS measurements. These are really kind of quick 10, 12 question surveys. And the CD risk survey, which is resilience. Resilience is a big word in medicine right now. We know that patients who have increased resilience are going to fare better during tumultuous times, i.e. getting chemotherapy. And so these are the surveys we looked at. We looked at before the groups and after the groups. We ran 6 groups per group, 6 sessions per group. We had 4 groups. So it was a total of 16 patients and a total of 24 sessions. And then really important for us is an additional 5 to 10 minutes to get feedback. What can we do better? How can we iterate on this experience? So I think one of the really interesting things about this is the early challenges that we came up against, right? This is a major university. This is a very old school university, very conservative university. And to get any trial going, it's got to go through 2 very important committees. First is the Protocol Review Committee. The Protocol Review Committee's responsibility is to make sure that the study is scientifically sound and is initially safe enough and seems clear enough to get through the IRB, the second committee, the Institutional Review Board. So I sat on this Protocol Review Committee when this came up, and this committee is used to looking at, there's the oncology committee, so a lot of medical devices and particularly early phase trials of drugs. So they knew how to manage that. So a trial would come up, it would get through that committee maybe 20 minutes. This protocol took 9 months. They just did not know what to do with it, right? The university is just not designed in a way to move something like this through. So it took a lot of education. It took me going to kind of outside faculty at the university to vouch for it. We had to come up with all kinds of emergency plans. So for example, what if a patient is in the experience and starts feeling, feelings of self-harm, suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, anxiety, nausea? What do we do in those situations? They're wonderful questions. It was a pain at the time, but I'm glad that we went through this process to figure out how we manage this. And so slowly over time, we came up with contingencies for this. We came up with algorithms how to handle this. And a 6-page protocol turned into 36 pages, and we got it launched. The initial session, frankly, I think the first 10 minutes of these sessions was one of my favorites. So it was 2 adolescent boys in a room with their social worker. Of course, there are tech problems, right? None of these, anybody who's done these trials with VR knows, none of them go off without a hitch. It's expected. And so the moderator stepped out of the room, and you had these 2 teenage boys in the virtual room, in their headgear, with their touch controls, and they're alone in a room. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. What do adolescent boys do when they're alone in a room together? It's just the 2 of them, and they don't know each other. They know each other, right? Like, it's awkward. Teenage boys are so awkward. And so what I noticed is these guys, you can tell from the body language, they're kind of fidgeting their thumbs. You can see the avatar's hands kind of moving around, and you can see they're not looking at each other. They're just kind of looking down at their hands. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, they really think they're in the same room together. So that was really exciting. If they just kind of started talking and stuff, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe we're inhibiting some anxiety here, but no, they were acting like they were in the room together, and that was really exciting for me. So we do what scientists do, and we start crunching the results now that we're done this initial trial. So our average age was 19. We did aim for kind of between 18 and 25-year-old range. We felt like this was a good place to start. The median was also 19, so again, we're hanging around that kind of 18 to 25. Most common diagnosis was ALL, which is leukemia, and this really makes sense for this population. ALL is the most common pediatric cancer, so that tells us that we got a really nice, good sample of the patients that would typically be using this. Genders was interesting. We had 10 males, 5 females. We tried to switch it up during our groups. Sometimes we'd do all male groups, sometimes all female groups, sometimes kind of 50-50. But we would try to keep it, make sure that one gender was not outranked by another. And we had one transgender female involved, which led us to another project that I'll get to in just a minute that is super exciting. And this is the real impressive, exciting number, this overall 72.7% attendance rate overall. That's huge. We went from 0 to 72% attendance. So in my mind, that worked. That's the result I really wanted. And really exciting is when we have started crunching the numbers for our anxiety, depression, and resilience, we are seeing significant improvements in resilience. And when I say significant improvements, I mean scientifically significant. P is less than, I think we're down to like less than 0.002. So really nice p-values here, and we're really looking forward to publishing this data. So here are some great kind of quotes. As scientists, we love the numbers, but as people, we love the quotes. So here's some kind of facilitators and experiences. I'm going to step over here so I can read them. But the first one, I found the anonymous factor to be comforting. I think I greatly benefited from the group, and it made me feel less isolated. I was a little embarrassed by my diagnosis, but this group provided me the confidence to be myself. I hope this group becomes a more regular occurrence outside of a clinical trial. And this is the kind of feedback we wanted. We wanted them to show us that they wanted to do this more, that this is something that they found interesting and would participate outside of the trial. It was extremely helpful to be able to vent to people who actually get it. I preferred VR to Zoom due to the fact that it felt more immersive and as though I was leaving my house to attend group. A lot of these patients, because they're immunocompromised, they aren't able to really get out a lot. And having support groups with patients that are mid-chemotherapy also prevents that risk of infection spread. So another reason this was a great option. And I think this is a good point for me to also throw in the fact that this included patients who were actually stuck in the hospital. So patients that were, we've got patients who are so compromised in the middle of bone marrow transplant, they have to be in a hospital room for months at a time, and we were able to get them headsets so they could participate in groups. So another great story there. I was skeptical at first, but over time came to enjoy the sessions. I would prefer a virtual reality group to a Zoom group as this group feels more immersive. So some recurring themes here. So we are seeing that patients enjoy the immersive aspect. They enjoy not having to necessarily leave their homes. And they feel like they're actually there and they want more. So super exciting. Barriers and feedback. So I'm not going to lie. These first 3 barriers here, these are humble brags. And these are things that came up again and again. I wish there were more sessions. I would have liked to continue the group for a couple more weeks. There could have been more sessions and more people in the group. Now, our initial study design was for just 4 sessions, and after the first group, people were so excited we had to add more. Let's see, future groups should be given a 5 to 10-minute break in order to have a chance to take off the headset. So definitely they were finding the headsets to be heavy. These were Oculus 2s. The groups were 45 minutes long. Physical discomfort from the headset. Virtual remind me of the hospital, so we want to get away from the hospital. First session be more of a get to know you, and I would like to see similar support group for caregivers of pediatric care patients. So we hit some speed bumps along the way. I'm not going to get into too much detail. This is Amanda Garbatini. She is the world's first virtual support group leader. And this is her after a session. So after this, she's got her VR goggle impressions and crazy hair, and she's got to go back into the hospital. So lighter headsets are going to be ideal. We've got great opportunities moving forward. We are already moving this into other cancer populations. And really exciting, we have this now in our Yale Transgender Clinic, working with transgender patients, really letting them kind of go to town in the avatars to be represented the way that they feel is their most authentic self. This led to a fantastic collaboration with Kimberly Hifia. We have formed XR Pediatrics. We do nothing but extended reality projects in pediatrics, ensuring they are safe and ensuring that they are helpful. This is the team. more of the team. You'll see a huge, diverse array of expertise, which is really exciting for us. And that's all I got for you. But thank you.
So thank you, that was amazing. I just wanted to ask, some research has shown a relationship between reduced procedural anxiety and responses to treatment. Have you explored studying this and seeing whether there is using this kind of immersive digital therapeutics, whether there is an impact to response to treatment or clinical outcomes?
Yeah, wonderful question. We've consciously decided not to study it. We've reviewed the literature, and it's so good. We kind of feel like it speaks for itself. There's not much room for improvement there. We'd kind of rather work on some less studied topics. We do have our anesthesiologists actually using it in perioperative periods. So yeah, we agree with it, and we're happy with it.
Go on.
So I'm curious about the one of the features that was mentioned in the group therapy was, at least on the website, as far as I could see, was voice alteration. And I'm wondering if that's utilized, and if it's utilized, does it detract from immersiveness? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just curious if you could expand on that and the pros and cons of doing that.
Yeah, so the voice augmentation was not in use during this trial. We're very interested in using it with the transgender patients. So we'll find out. We'll find out. The quality is impressive. So I think the higher the quality of something like that, the less it's going to pull away from the immersion, because it'll be believable. And I think it's much easier to kind of fake a voice than fake a face. If that makes sense. So I think we'll do okay with it.
James, where do you see opportunities for Glimpse Group moving forward for healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such an interesting area, and I think the opportunities are huge. I think to your point, it's more the challenge of how you integrate it within the healthcare industry, right? So I mean, I think research like this, projects like this, kind of proves the value in it, and I think everyone sort of generally nods along. It's then how do you roll it out? How do you manage it? Because a big part of this as well. This is like an initial project, quite contained. It's like, well, if you wanted to roll this out, suddenly you've got to have the content, make sure you've got the latest versions, you've got to manage headsets, you've got to have all this sort of MDM piece. So I think the opportunity's there. Everyone kind of gets it. It's just then how you implement it, and you've got to make it easy. Like you say, there's a lot of resistance. It's not, the most sort of embracing of new technology for some good reasons. Some possibly just not quite so quick at adopting. So you have to make it easy, and you have to sort of take the risk out. And that's the opportunity when it becomes more, enterprise ready in a healthcare environment and easy. That's just gonna, the results like this just make it a no-brainer. But it's like, but how do I do it? So you've got to overcome that, and that's the opportunity really, making it, easy to deploy and easy to manage and easy to measure. Absolutely. Easily said.
So I'm guessing the things you're referring to about arranging all the stuff, that is the thing that we, I think, as XR enthusiasts, that we understand. We have the same problems at my company. But my wife, she is an oncology nurse, and I think the way they work is they need proof. So they need to stage an intervention. They call it an intervention, I think, if they want something to change at their hospital. Mm-hmm. So I imagine I think you're doing amazing work, but I do think it's a little easier for the professor of Yale than for the oncology nurse in the Dutch rural hospital. So are you going to help with that proof that they can say, here's the intervention?
Yeah, so our next steps, which we've already started moving on, the first was to figure out how to bill for this. Right, a hospital is not going to launch any intervention that they can't get reimbursed for. It's a money loser. So thanks to COVID, there are kind of newer guidelines for billing that allow you to bill for telehealth for certain interventions. And we've taken a look at those codes, and we're now utilizing those codes to bill for these actual groups through telehealth codes. The way that they're written is there needs to be a visual representation of the patient during the contact. And we're like, well, we've got avatars. This is our patient. There's our visual representation. So we've got that billing in place. And I'm lucky enough to work in a large institute, and it's double-edged, right? Because to get anything done, it's got to go through a million committees and talk to a million people. But our starting point has been the actual department that deals with telehealth. And so it's about kind of finding that way in and through. And so, my dream is for us to be the first medical system that has virtual reality-based care. It's a haul. It's a long haul, and I think James brings up a great point. Not only are the bureaucratic issues, but the logistics are hard, right? Distributing these headsets, we were just distributing to 4 patients per group, and to get them back, get them cleaned, get them sanitized, get them trained to put it on. It's more work than you realize. As XR becomes more mainstream, that cost of entry is going to go down. And by cost, I mean time and effort. And I think it's inevitable. And I think we're all kind of scrambling to do it right and do it first and do it effectively.
So James and Asher, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.